Evening all. So as promised, I said I would bring you a video, and here we are. So we've spoke about doing videos for a while. I touched on maybe doing live Q&A. The issue with that was when would we do it? And I've kind of come to a little idea that I'm going to kind of look to put out maybe fortnightly, maybe weekly video, depending on demand and feedback. The idea is to kind of cover people's questions, talk about topics that people are interested in finding a little bit more about. And obviously when the video goes out, any comments on the video with questions, different ideas, we'll look to follow up with another video. So this week's video, I promised, was a little bit about threshold training. Obviously at the moment we're week 1 of the autumn threshold series, and I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about why we do that, what the benefits are, and kind of a little few bits to look for. First of all, what is threshold training? On the website, I've put up a bit of an in-depth look into what is threshold training. I've tried not to make it too jargony, not too much science in it, but it is in depth. It does kind of go into it, talking about what it is, why we do it, and different ways that you can use threshold training. Also, I put a post up on Monday about looking at graphs after people's runs, and I'm going to kind of go into a little bit more about what we can look for with that. When we spoke about graphs on the group on Monday, there were 2 markers that we put on the graph. One was the effort level and the other was recovery level. When I go into what is threshold training, it will make a little bit more sense. So with threshold training, probably the easiest way to look at it is the idea is of threshold training is to promote your body to clear lactic acid as quick as you can make it, or quicker than you can make it. So effectively, if you imagine a bucket with a hose, when we're running at a very easy pace, there's nothing coming out of the hose. There's a bit of water in the bottom of the bucket, but we're not really filling up. As we move on from that into maybe a steady run, maybe a marathon paced run, the hose is pouring in the bucket, but the body is clearing it as much or quicker than it's coming in. So there's no real build-up of lactic acid. You notice a build-up of lactic acid when you start to feel burning in your legs. Effectively, what that is the acid in your muscles changing the pH in your muscles, which causes the burning. So like I said, easy running, there's no real build-up. Steady running, you start to get a little build-up, but your body's more than comfortable at dealing with it. And the idea with threshold training is you push your body to the threshold of where your body can clear the lactate as fast as it's making it. So I'll put a link to the blog post that I put up, which will explain it a bit better than I can explain it now. But basically what we're doing is kind of pushing the boundary of how quickly we can clear the lactic acid versus how quickly our body's making it. Which takes me back to the importance of looking at the graph. So when we looked at the graph and we had the effort level and the recovery level, the effort target on VDOT is set, or Garmin is set at a point that system believes we're at the limit of how quickly we can run versus how quickly our body's producing lactate. So the idea is if you run just a little bit above that, you're stressing your body enough to promote clearing the lactate faster, which then helps endurance, will prolong fatigue to help you run for longer. And that's kind of where we're at. So with the graph, when you look at the effort level, the aim is not to take that effort level higher. The effort level kind of needs to stay the same. So when we said about finding the sweet spot, that kind of needs to stay throughout for the 10 weeks. You will, as fitness increases, you'll probably gain slightly and it'll feel a little bit easier, which generally is when your lactate threshold starts to move. And as such, you'll then pick up the pace that it will take you to hit that threshold. So naturally you'll run a little bit quicker before you get to that point. But the idea is you don't want, if your session feels too comfortable, don't push the effort up. So the two lines, the effort and the recovery, the effort stays around the same. As you get fitter, you'll have the potential to bring the recovery up. So when we talk about walking recovery, you might get to a point where your session feels more comfortable and you can start to then maybe jog half the recovery, walk half the recovery. You might get to a point where you can then continuously jog the recovery, obviously at a recovery pace. But what I'm saying here is with the effort, keep the effort level. Don't feel good and try and push the effort, because then you take away the whole point of threshold training. Threshold training, the idea is that you sit at that point where your body is stressed enough to promote adaptation between how much you're clearing lactate versus how much you're building lactate. So that is quite a specific point. And again, on the blog, I'll talk a little bit about how the accuracy of being at that point is not easy, given using pace, heart rate, feel, unless you're doing specific blood work around finding that point. It's not 100% accurate, but with experience, you'll know when you're at that point. As we say, it's kind of a comfortably uncomfortable position. Going back to what a couple of people mentioned on Monday about looking at graphs, looking at paces, and kind of what we can take away from that. Obviously, the example that I put out was a Strava graph, which is quite easy to look at because it kind of levels everything off. So it's quite easy to draw a line to where your interval pace is and where your recovery pace is. A lot of people found that one kind of correlated to the other. They're not necessarily flat. Obviously with that, if you can try, as you go through the sessions, you'll notice that they will flatten out because you'll become more comfortable with what threshold pace feels like, what sort of recovery you can hold in the session. Another thing to look at is on VDOT. If you look on VDOT, it will show you your splits for the recoveries as well as the efforts. And again, it won't give you a graph, but you can gauge an idea of where your recovery sits and where your effort level sits, looking at the numbers. Within Garmin, it will give you a bit of both. So if you go into your Garmin run for Monday or future Monday sessions, Garmin will give you a lot of information if you drill into it. So it'll give you a graph. The graph on Garmin shows you your target pace and your actual pace. So that's something to look at. It will also give you the ability to go into the intervals and separate out the effort and the recovery, so you can kind of gauge an average there. But that's just a couple of bits to look at, just to kind of self-review your sessions after we've done them on a Monday. So like I said, this is a little bit about why we do threshold training. So I'll post up the links for the blog post. It's quite long, but there's quite a lot of information in there. Again, there's a comment section on there, so if anybody's got any comments, whether it's too long, too much, not enough, more questions, I've tried to keep it as not sciencey as I can. And again, I'll post up a couple of bits about what we've been saying about the graphs as well. Obviously with the videos, I'll try and do them regularly. I'll definitely commit to fortnightly. If there's enough there that we can do them weekly, I'll do them weekly. But yeah, let's see where we go. So drop any comments for any questions about threshold or topics that you want me to look at in future videos. And yeah, hopefully we can go on from there. Cheers guys, thank you.